Here in the Midwest, October is such a sweet month. There are apples ready to be harvested, pumpkins, fall parties. The air is, for the most part, crisp and beautiful. And we just love to soak in all the fun autumn things before the long days of winter. One of my favorite things to make is a cobbler with whatever fruit is in season. Like I just mentioned, apples are in season right now for us, but I've done this with blackberries, peaches. I want to try it this next summer with strawberries. And I just follow the Pinch of Yum recipe for her peach cobbler and just flip out the fruit interchangeably. Life as a mom is sweeter than I ever thought it could be, and I just derive so much joy from making a seasonal treat, baking a fun treat while the baby is toddling around, playing independently with, as you heard, a lot of things to say. I just love this season so much. A recent addition to our kitchen that we have been loving is this Cozy Land tower, which just so happens to be the sponsor of today's video. Cozy Land makes this toddler tower, and it is the handiest thing ever. As soon as we got it out for our daughter, she knew exactly what to do and exactly how to climb up. I love that it has additional feet at the bottom and is really heavy, so it's super sturdy, and I just feel like she's really safe in it. In addition to that, it also has this board that we can pull out for her to climb in and then drop it in when she's in here, so it feels very, very safe. And I just love that she has a way to interact with us, eat here with us, play while I cook, in a very safe way. I also love that it will grow with her as she gets older, because it has 3 heights that you can set this board that they stand on at. Right now we have hers at the highest, and then as she gets a little bit taller, we can lower it down. That way it remains very, very safe for her. And I just love that it'll be so useful, probably all the way up until a next kid is using it. This was a wonderful addition to our kitchen for the whole family. My husband and I love that she can be safely interacting with us, and she loves that she can finally feel like a part of the action. If you are also in the toddler years, or you are a grandparent to a toddler, I know that this Cozy Land tower will make a wonderful addition to your kitchen as well. So make sure to check out the link in my description below to get one of your own. Thanks again to Cozy Land for sponsoring today's video. Lately, I have had the desire to take on a rather large sewing project. I didn't know what I wanted it to be exactly, but a lot of my projects recently have been smaller or just really easy, and I have been wanting to take on one that would be a little more challenging. And then when my favorite pattern company, Matchy Matchy Sewing Club, released this set, I knew that I wanted to try and make it into a dress. So this is the High Tide set from Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. I am only using the few B bodice pieces, and then I will hack on a skirt. I always sew matchy matchy patterns in a size medium. When I am starting a sewing project, I usually like to dedicate one nap time to getting the pattern cut out and the actual pieces of the fabric cut out, and then I like to set it aside for a little bit. For this particular project, I decided I wanted to have a cozy sewing night, so I made dinner and set it aside until after the baby went to sleep. We are trying to use up some herbs, some meats that we have frozen, and just a lot of the stuff that we have in our pantry and refrigerator. And so I am doing what we like to call an empty out the fridge pasta. It is where you obviously make a pasta, and then for the sauce, you just kind of use whatever you have on hand. We had a lot of tomatoes that we were needing to get rid of, and a bag of shredded chicken that we had frozen at some point throughout this past year. I tossed in some onions. We needed to use up some sage, and then put in obviously a plenty of seasonings and a lot of butter. And my husband told me that I need to make this over and over because he thought it was so good. Making a meal without a plan, or really without anything thawed, is not my strong suit. It's not something that I do very often, but I honestly had so much fun with this. My creativeness does not lend itself usually to being creative in the kitchen, but this was a lot of fun. I just love being able to light a candle and feel like we are using foods that we needed to use up. And I got this fun pasta from Trader Joe's that was shaped like a pumpkin, which just made it feel extra cozy and fall-like. And I just love stuff like that. I recently read a quote that said, "You will probably never feel ready to start because confidence builds after we take action, not before it." And that really stood out to me as someone who loves to learn new skills. I love the constant reminder that if you don't feel ready, that's totally fine. And I love to think about the fact that most of the time, the stakes are so low. When it comes to skills that I have been wanting to learn more about, or have learned more about, like sewing or sourdough or gardening, I have to remind myself that the actual worst thing that can happen is I waste time and a little bit of fabric that has usually been thrifted anyways. Or with sourdough, I waste a little bit of time and some flour and some water. I have been trying to tell myself over and over that when it comes to learning a new skill, using time is not actually a waste. Even if the sourdough loaf doesn't turn out, the zinnias don't grow, the dress is actually not wearable, or I don't like it, I can almost always reframe it in my mind and say, I learned this, or I have to do that next time. Or even if you learned nothing, I can toss it up to saying, if I want to make perfect sourdough loaves every time, sometimes they're just not going to work out, and that one becomes breadcrumbs, and that is just not that big of a deal. And I also have been trying to think about the fact that thinking and planning can become a waste of time as well. I notice this the most in my sewing. I want to perfectly plan my garments, and I do think that there is something to be said for planning what you are sewing so that you actually wear it. Just from a sustainability mindset, that is just a wise practice. However, sometimes I find myself worrying that the pattern won't actually work for me, or I don't actually like that, or I won't actually wear it, or the fabric isn't going to be just right. And I just need to say to myself, you have thought more about this than it would take to make the dress. And that is whenever I know I am overthinking it. And that is whenever that quote comes to mind, that why would I expect confidence in this idea to come before I have taken action? I am becoming definitely a more confident sewer, someone who knows more about the fibers and the patterns and what works for me. And so I do enter projects a little bit more confidently now, but that is only after sewing this whole year with very little confidence and honestly very little knowledge. And I know that I have so much more to learn and that I can sew for many, many, many years and gain confidence with each and every garment. I use this channel to share my journey of learning how to be the keeper of our home and being a young mom. And I hope that it is always an encouragement to you if you are in a similar season or you can relate in any way. I just like to share the things that I am learning to be an encouragement. And this concept of time spent learning a skill and gaining confidence and not looking at that as a waste of time, even if stuff doesn't turn out, is a new thing and something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. And so I wanted to share it with you. I think often as homemakers, we don't get a lot of stuff done strictly because we are thinking about it too much, not because of an actual lack of time. And looking at it this way has really created a lot of time in my day, which has created a lot of joy for me because I'm doing things that I actually want to do. This mindset shift has taught me that I can learn more skills than I ever thought I could, that things are really doable, and that I have the time to do them. For my dress, this definitely met the goal of wanting a more complicated project and something that I just am really proud to wear. Whenever I make garments like this, I like to make them as good as I possibly can. This particular garment, I decided to have the buttons go all the way down the front of the skirt. And because of that, I knew that I needed to put in I think what's called a button placket. And so I did that by continuing the inner facing down the skirt. I maybe should have done it with a facing that went over the gathering seam, but I did not do that. But I have to say the inside of the dress I really like the way it looks. I also wanted to give the dress some shape by adding in some ties that could tie around my waist. I find that really billowy dresses are hard to give my body shape without the ties, so I added those, and I just really love the charming details. Another thing that I am so fortunate to do is embroider my buttonholes. I used to own an embroidery business, and this is one way that comes in clutch in my learning how to sew, is that I get to have embroidered buttonholes. As always, I hope this video was encouraging to you. I hope that the mindset shift I have learned with learning new skills encourages you in your homemaking and inspires you. I hope you have a wonderful autumn day, and I will see you guys next week.